Hello there, boys and girls. This is Ed. How are you doing? Hopefully you're doing well. I just wanted to share my thoughts on Streets of Rage 4, and I'll admit it, up until I completed it I had a bit of a love-hate relationship with this game, and I want to share what I loved and what got me raging like I haven't raged probably since I was playing a Mega Drive all them years ago. So I bought this game at full price, which is very rare for me to do. It's £23 on Steam store at the minute, and I didn't play it straight away. I was hyping myself up, working myself to get into it, kind of playing the old ones again, and that was a bit of a mistake. This game is not like the old ones. You can't go at it thinking that you're going to go in and start smashing them. Everyone, all of the minions, all of the grunts, they're almost like bosses in their own right. Their health bars are pretty much all of them are bigger than yours, if not double, because they have two lines of health. So I went in, everybody is kicking my ass. The ginger guys, the bikers, the bold guys were the worst. In the first 3 games, I used to spam and use the flying kick a lot. I used to love it. That's why I used to pick Adam. This one, the flying kick, it's basically a homing missile for them just to uppercut you out the sky. It really wound me up. I was raging. It wasn't Streets of Rage. I was raging in my bedroom. I swear to God, some of the bosses are like. My gamepad was dripping with sweat. You know, I finally managed to complete the game. It took me 5 hours, and it's probably like a 2-hour run through game. And and the moment that the last boss went up into the air in slow motion, I stood up and I had to walk around the house just to de-stress. It got me going. And that's not to say just because the game's difficult that it's bad, but if you haven't played it yet and you're gonna be prepared, this is Dark Souls level of tough. What makes this game tough is the fact that mostly all the enemies are equally as strong as you. They are all of them capable of taking you out, and several times I was taken out. The big fat guys are absolutely horrendous. They're harder than some of the bosses. The fact that the enemies have the ability to do diagonal attacks and, you know, basically do attacks that take up the entire screen, of which it's pretty much crowded all the time anyway. I mean, the sprites, the characters are huge. The fact that they can spam like these moves, it can get ridiculous, and you've got to be so on your feet. I've eventually got up to a standard of being alright on it. I've tried doing the boss runs and I can't get past the second one, the commissioner. It's rock hard. But yeah, the enemies, man, jeez, you got to learn each enemy. You can't do flying kicks on the bold guys. You've got to basically sneak up from either up or down. You don't go from the front if you want to grab hold of someone. There's a lot of dancing around. I don't know if you've ever saw a George Foreman fight where most of the people he was fighting were just always outside of the reach of his jab. That's what the enemies do in this. They are consistently moonwalking out of your range, so you're throwing and hitting air. Jeez, that guy that walks around with his hands in his pocket, oh God, he was raging. And mostly all of them have special attacks now, and they use them more or less as a goat. It's literally the only attack that some of them use. The guy who walks around with his hands in his pocket, he does a kick, which basically he can travel from one end of the screen to the other, and if he hits you with one of them, you're locked into that and you're going along for the ride. Now, I'll be honest, I was going to give up on this game, and I even posted a negative review on Steam, which is the first time I ever posted a negative review of any game, because I just don't see the point in putting on. I love games too much. I'd rather sit and play games than sit down and watch anything on TV or a movie. So for me to leave a negative review, and especially for a Streets of Rage game, which is basically one of my childhood favourites, was a big thing. Eventually I completed the game and I started to relax into it and get into it, and it's actually really good. Probably it's a worthy Streets of Rage game, definitely. Now, one of the things that made this game difficult, and it's in a lot of reviews and a lot of Streets of Rage fans are complaining about it, is just how slow the characters are. Axel is they're so sluggishly slow. I mean, they've taken out the sprint, they've taken out the ability to roll up and down the screen. So if you see an attack coming, and very rarely do you even see the attacks coming now. I mean, what's happening on screen here is tons of, well, 3 enemies, and they're throwing shurikens. There's weapons everywhere. The screen's very crowded at all times with junk and people. It becomes very crowded. But as I say, you're so slow compared to everyone else that you kind of just, for the first run through of this, I was really taking it, and I was getting B's, I was getting C's. For the most part, I was just scraping through. I mean, not every character in the game's slow. The new girl Cherry has the ability to run, but who the hell wants to play as her? And Adam has the ability to do a quick step forward, which I used and spammed like crazy, just to get close to them. So even just to get close to them, to let them land a few punches on you. Oh, and by the way, remember in the first games where your special attack was kind of a get out of jail free card? You could land it and clear the screen. You only had 1 or 2. Well, you have only 1 or 2 specials in this. They're very sparing, but they are so weak. They're almost pathetically weak. You can do a special attack on this and it takes some health off you, because you got a star attack and you got your special attack. I was doing special attacks and I ended up practically killing myself. I was doing more damage to me than I was to the boss. Come on, man. I mean, they mustn't have got the memo, because I remember in the first Streets of Rage where when an enemy used to come on screen, they kind of come on, stood at the corner, stood there for a bit, and we all kind of stood around, eyed each other up, then I kicked the fuck out of them and we move on. Not in this game. As I said, the enemies can't go back off the screen, so when you throw them into the side of the screen, they bounce back off it. And that's when you're supposed to rush in and start whacking them up and doing your combo and getting all the score up and stuff like that. Also, the score, you now have like S ranks and A ranks and stuff like that, and I for the life of me cannot get above a B. And apparently people have been getting S ranks on Mania and stuff like that. I play on normal, and normal is absolutely solid. I've heard people saying that they put it on easy, and I didn't want to do that. I was tempted to. This was the last take I did, and I recorded it, and I recorded me actually finishing the game, and it was like I couldn't believe I actually did it. I thought I'm beat. I mean, I got beat at the last boss about 3 or 4 times. So what am I trying to say? It's basically it was it's what I liked a bit, is that it's old school in that regard. So often now games will literally make it so anyone can beat it. Not so much on this one. As I've said, this is the Dark Souls of beat 'em ups. I ain't never played a game that was so hard. The music's alright. I think there's only one track that I still sort of have in my head when I'm not playing it. I mean, it was a really tough act to follow. The first 3, the music was, it could easily be said that the music to the first 3 was probably the best thing of the game. You know, I have people who I talk to about the game now, and they ask if I know a place where I can get the soundtrack. So when I heard the music on this, it was alright. It's just your average techno sort of beat. Very forgettable for the most part. You do have a retro option, so you can put the old music back on. But it's the weirdest thing, because some of the tracks are like Game Gear, the Game Gear versions of it. So you're playing along to like a really stylised, good-looking game, and you've got this old sort of emulated like really bad versions of the songs. And the Game Gear versions of the songs were the exact same as the Mega Drive ones. It just didn't sound anywhere near as good. And also, like, instead of like putting the tracks in the right order, boss battle themes will be like opening to levels. It's really, I don't know. The music just wasn't what it's not the best thing of the game, sadly, but it's pretty damn good. Now, the best thing about this game for me is the visuals, the art style, and the presentation is perfect. I mean, if they was going to do it, I mean, the amount of times that I've seen Streets of Rage being announced as like a 3D Streets of Rage, and it never kind of got made. I think Fighting Force was, well, I know Fighting Force was meant to be a Streets of Rage game, and I'm so glad it wasn't. I remember I played that to the end, and it was a pretty bland experience, really repetitive, and you know, it was all right. But no, I think the Streets of Rage and games like this, they benefit from being 2D, and thankfully this one, it looks great, it plays great. When you can get your combos going, and when you get into it, and when you learn how to basically take on each enemy, it really does get good. You can't just go in and spam flying kicks on certain enemies. Some of them are capable of defending against that, but they're weak against like grabs. Other ones are, you can't grab them, so you have to learn how to sort of slide into them. It's a sort of rock, scissors and paper thing, which in the long run is actually a good thing. You just have to give this game time in order to, well, get the most out of it. Now, I think the price of the game is a bit expensive at £23. You are going to get through the game in about 2.5 hours. Most of the reviews on Steam are like 3 hours on record, and yeah, it's a relatively short game by any stretch, and I think £23 is, it's quite steep. I paid it, but I'm not sure if I could recommend. It's probably like a £15 game. The problem is if this didn't have Streets of Rage attached to the name, and you took out the characters and it was just a side-scrolling beat 'em up, I don't think you could ask £25 for it. I think the most that they'd ask is about £10 for it. And sadly, the cutscenes are pretty basic too. They're just 2D art things. I mean, they look great, but it would have been nice to have had the game, you know, voice acted and stuff like that. I mean, the end credits showed tons of voice acting. Everyone's got a voice actor for the characters, and I don't know if anyone actually speaks. So I'm going to probably wrap it up, and I just wanted to give my thoughts on a game that I've waited so long for. I'm not disappointed. It was a unique experience. As I say, beating it was. It's not. I'm not used to games doing that, where I'm expected to actually, you know, fail. I'm not used to it in video games no more. Growing up, I was. I mean, I used to play RoboCop vs Terminator, and that game was infamously solid. But yeah, if you can get this game, I would recommend you wait to get it on discount, unless you're a fan of the actual original ones, where if that's the case, you've already got it. Yeah, it's got a lot going for it, but you've got to also be prepared for how tough it is. Man, gaming never used to be like this. Maybe it was actually. I just remember the first Streets of Rage games, I used to be able to actually, you know, take out. It was the bosses that always did me in the end. In this one, it's the grunts and the minions, man. Anyway, that's it from me. I'm interested to know if you've played this game, whether or not you found it as difficult as I did. I mean, I am not going to go above normal. No way in hell. Not unless I have a friend who wants to just do it just to really test each other. But yeah, that's me done. I'm going to wrap it up. I think we're getting up to the 15-minute mark, or thereabouts. Take it easy, B.